I've been playing one of Factorio's longest mods, Space Exploration plus Krastorio 2 for over 200 hours. Try 400 hours. I haven't left my house in years. I don't know what's happening anymore, and at this point, I'm too afraid to ask. Somebody please unplug my computer before the save file becomes a mark of shame on my hard drive forever. Welcome to a race against time and space. This is part 18. Last time we incubated the beginnings of a spaceship fleet and got space lasers. This time I want to bombard Thule, a planet with large concentrates of much needed iridium, using the aforementioned space lasers. This will set up a landing zone for a spaceship assault, and I plan to finish the job on foot with my new Power Armor Mark III. I'm also close to finishing Tier 4 Space Science, so finishing those and moving on to the final stretches would be a major accomplishment. The previous ships we made focused on girth, and this time I needed something designed with damage in mind. Something sleek and powerful, but also capable of hauling bulk amounts of iridium when its glory days have passed it by, and it just carries things from point A to B like a worn-down Honda Civic that a family of 4 refuses to replace. That's the plan, at least. Well, except it's getting pretty long. I guess if the Honda was more like a limousine or an Oscar Mayer Wienermobile. The only width I wanted was 6 for the warehouse, plus 2 on each side for a loader and underground, plus 1 more on each side for the outer wall, bringing the total to only 12 width. After that, the goal was to make it as long as I possibly could. The engine system is a hybrid, 2 rocket engines and 1 ion engine. The reason for the rocket engines are to take off from planets, but as I learned, you don't actually need rocket engines to take off from planets, just rocket fuel in the tanks. Ion engines are more efficient, faster, and have cheaper fuel, but the fuel can't be made on planets. The rocket engines do allow the ship to independently travel between planets without having to stop in space to get more ion fuel, but given that Morrigan is the literal closest planet to Navis, I should have just used ion engines. Hindsight.
Well, hello?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
I made the world's longest rocket possible.
Rocket?
Spaceship.
Oh, you made like the hot dog Oscar Mayer Wienermobile
Yes.
of spaceship. You should show me your long ship.
Behold. I'm gonna give you the slow reveal.
You should just take a step off the platform and slowly flit out.
Yeah.
You get that intro music from Spaceballs.
Yeah.
Dun, 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 dun.
It's so big it needs a second power pole.
That's pretty large.
It's ready. That's all I have to say.
Length is for show, girth is for show. Okay. What is it called? What did it call itself?
Oh, that's a good question.
You can just click on the fucking
What thing?
the computer in the ship.
The egret.
No, that's gotta change.
But like they've got the big long beaks
Nah.
for hunting and
I
fishing.
saw one
fish.
I saw one that was called the Spear, and that's a way better name for this.
I feel like I don't know if I can change, or if like I do change them, it has to be like not my doing.
How about the Hornswaggler?
All right, well that is not my doing.
No.
Jornswaggler.
Jornswaggler. Life sucks. All the medical equipment, and the guys just yelling, "Let me die." That's how I feel right now. Like, let me fucking sleep.
That's good.
I'm looking at my neighbors in their hot tub right now.
What? You're definitely hallucinating.
What? No, they have a hot tub. What? Ooh, energy weapon damage 8, you say?
Yes, I need the artillery to one-shot everything. Also, there's nothing else to research right now because Substrate is being slow. With the approval of the council, the Jornswaggler was ready for its maiden journey. Its purpose? To haul crushed iridite over to Morrigan. Iridite is possibly the slowest material to process, and the iridite miners are drying up on Morrigan. There are many things I could have done about this. Thule, the planet that we will be invading, contains vulcanite, meaning I could completely make iridite bars and send them to space. This potentially simplifies the process and makes it more efficient, as iridite isn't exactly friendly to stack until it becomes ingot, but it also means that I would need to reproduce the vulcanite and iridite crafting processes again, which is very tedious. Additionally, while the sun beaming provides a lot of energy, it isn't the same as infinite energy, and productivity modules in advanced crafting buildings means big energy. Which brings us to the final point. Productivity module 6s are currently used in the crushing and smelting processes of iridite, and doubling up on those on 2 different planets would be very expensive and taxing on our Vitamelange supply. I could do it without the productivity modules, but given how slow the process is and how many inputs it needs, the productivity modules might actually be making the process faster than actually using speed modules, as crazy as that sounds. So to avoid the complications, I decided to crush it first. This produces sand as a byproduct that is easy to get rid of, and crushed iridite can be stacked 4 times more than raw iridite.
So is that planet just closer to where your manufacturing is in the other part of the solar system or something?
Yeah, it's just a place that has more of the stuff. I'm going to then send it back.
Okay, nice. How's your spaceship doing?
I've made 3 now. I made the longest possible one that I could make.
Okay. Were those supposed to be something useful to you in early game?
Yeah, there's the possibility of having it early, which would have been good to know, but here we are. Mining and crushing is easy enough to set up with the sun beam after it fried the biters on the island we landed on, and it can now be used like a nuclear power plant to generate steam for power, only it's stronger, doesn't need uranium processing, and is basically free. It's an insanely strong tool for landing on and setting up new factories on new planets. Anyway, it's already complete. Power is generated, rocket fuel is produced, and iridite is mined and crushed, ready to be exported. This mod may be grueling and grindy, but it at least gives pretty good tools for setting up new factories. If only they came a little sooner, a little more readily, and a little more often. Going into my 9th new planet at this stage in the game feels a little bit like sitting at the kids' table. Yeah, I know how to set up mines and crushers and smelting. I've done it 200 times. At least I can play with spaceships for this one. I don't know about you, but 2 warehouses of crushed iridite doesn't sound like a good Christmas gift. Regardless, Morrigan will accept it and in kind fill up this spaceship with rocket fuel so it can bring back more warehouses of iridite. Morrigan routinely thinks about going on strike and undergoing a Morrigexit as a result of these outlandish demands, but the modern political climate and declining tax revenue to pay for biter Meteor defense ammunition doesn't afford it the luxury. Morrigan falls in line and begrudgingly accepts the new bureaucracy. Join the club. You think I want to be here pushing around yellow rocks? I'm supposed to be amongst the stars learning the secrets of the universe, but I got demands to meet, and who's gonna fill those demands? Just do what you're told, Morrigan, and someday I'll get you back. Someday it won't be like this. We still haven't finished Material Science 4, so it's time to patch that up. Material Science 4 is charitable. It doesn't require core fragments or data from stars to complete, just a bunch of materials. Sure, it's expensive to have fancy space floors and more particle stream as an input to science, but it's nothing I fundamentally don't have right now. No requirement to make a new spaceship. You know, I'm starting to like this material science fella. You ever met my friend Morrigan? I think you two might have some mutual interests if you're ever interested. Just a thought. Continuing the theme of past material sciences, the 4 data cards and all junk outputs like scrap, contaminated scrap, and used data cards will share 2 belts, and filter inserters will be used to grab any junk in each data card until they hit a quota. This is the simplest and most compact way of handling data cards with low throughput and a high number of outputs that I could come up with. There's a lot I would change if I could start from scratch, and this is one of them. Just dump all your outputs into a warehouse and then filter them out of the warehouse. They're big enough to give a separate output for junk and all your outputs, and it makes filtering so much easier. There's really little reason to try and handle this with splitters and belts. And you know what time it is? The science loop. This may be the last time I say science loop, and you might feel attached, like, oh, I really like it when you said science loop. It grounded me during my dissociations. Well, for me, it's good riddance because this is the 16th science loop. 1 was too many. On the bright side, I made way too many Material Science 1 assemblers so I can reuse that space for Science 4 assemblers because they share significant data as an input. And that, my friends, is the completion of all 4 space sciences. It's happened many times before, but as I stand on top of this mountain, I see another 5 times taller mountain that I need to climb. A brief moment of opiate responses in my brain that I cherish, staring out at the Cthulian breakfast machine that I've assembled. And then I throw the harness back on, retie my shoes, and it's back to climbing, one hand in front of the other. On the bright side, one part of this mountain I have already pre-climbed is Matter Science 1, so I get to belt sciences in back-to-back, which felt great. There are 7 more sciences left in the game, Matter 2, Advanced 1 and 2, and Deep Space Science 1 through 4. At some point I unlocked the ability to process Naquitite ingots, but I haven't even mined any yet. This is because Naquitite is only found in asteroid fields that are far away from suns, and it would take a specialized ship to comfortably get to one of those fields, and even then it would be a very long journey. Naquitite will be the main ingredient for the Deep Space Sciences, but first I need to make a spaceship in the shape of a Cheez-It. Well, it didn't have to be in the shape of a Cheez-It, but I've been running out of shapes. First I made a house, then I made a fat house, then I made a long skinny house, and I'm completely out of shapes. This ship will not be going to the asteroid fields, but instead to a new planet, Jura, that is home to Vitamelage. The reason is because Bioscience 4 needs Vitamelage core fragments, so I need a new planet to get them from. Planet Horrera Tomb has Vitamelage core fragments, but it's so far away that rockets take 600,000 rocket fuel, about 6 times more fuel than any other planet to get to Navi's orbit. Core fragments only stack to 20, so using the rocket to do this would be really slow. Taking a spaceship there is about an hour round trip, which sounds awful. So I'm going to be invading Jura and making a colony to get its core fragments using my Cheez-It. I spent a long time looking for a good place to land on Jura, and these were the criteria I was looking for. A core miner location for core fragments, an iron mine and crude oil for rocket fuel production, mineral water and rare metals for Vitamelage extract production, all on a small island or peninsula with an easily defendable choke point. There were several places that met 2 or 3 of these criteria, but without all 4, the plan wouldn't work. It wasn't until I zoomed out a little bit to find a small choke point on a fairly large plot of land that I hadn't been able to see before, using the eastern edge of the planet as a natural barrier. Just let that part bake at 4,000, come back in a few hours, see if it's done. In the meantime, I made a small adjustment on Navis. The dirty water generated from pollution filters was being routed to make rare metals, while previously making a steady amount of iron and copper respectively when it needed to. I've been running out of stone with the large demand for glass silicon and even just raw stone, so I decided to use some secret tech. When you flare dirty water, it gives back stone as a byproduct. This is the only flare recipe I've seen that has a byproduct, let alone a solid one, and there is no recipe for it, so I was very excited to actually use it. I love using weird, niche, unknown strategies. It just feels cool. Turning on the oven light, we can see a nice light brown crisp forming. Lovely. Anyway, we can now make advanced science. It requires combining the Science 3 catalogs from all 4 sciences into a combined catalog, then turning that into an advanced catalog, and finally advanced science. Each science pack requires quantum processors and advanced neural gel, which are anything but cheap, a pattern that's becoming all too familiar. I found a tiny plot of unused land just south of the science labs to produce it in, and I'm hoping I can just spaghetti it all together here. See? Perfectly fits.
I was showing off. There's also voices that you can add.
What
like
the fuck?
Voice modulator effect.
Dude, that sounds like so epic.
Oh, no, I haven't even listened to it yet. Like,
Dude.
there's no side tone to it, but it's called DJ Robot, so apparently it does that.
It sounds like DJ Robot.
Yo, DJ Robot in the house. What playing, like, is it rhythmic?
It's as rhythmic as you talk.
You like actually sing. I'm
Very
alive
sing-songy.
like you,
Okay.
so please. I'm here.
No, go back. That was very jarring.
No, you gotta keep it special.
Oh, yeah, and then I was upgrading to Thruster Suit 3, and yeah, those are all my items on the floor. So armor gives you increased inventory space, and when you take it off, you splooge all the extra stuff in your inventory that no longer fits onto the ground. Gaming collectively solved this issue a long time ago with crates that hold your stuff when you die and disappear when you get your stuff back, and we even do it in this game when you die with your corpse. So we have no reason for this to happen anymore. Just add a temporary chest that stores your inventory stuff when this happens. I don't care about lore or physics or reality. Oh, where does the chest come from? I don't care. This is so awful to deal with when it happens and so unnecessary. It should be an easy slam dunk addition when Space Age comes out. So much so that if Space Age comes out and doesn't have it, I will start a petition to have it added, and you should sign it because there's no argument here. Just add it. Anyway, the Cheez-It is now fully operational, boasting 4 ion thrusters, and yeah, it needs better power generation. By better power, I mean the condenser turbines can't accept 5,000 degrees steam that I've been generating, so I actually need to vent it out using an advanced turbine that can take 5,000 degrees steam until the temperature gets low enough for the normal turbines to be able to use the steam. Now that I can build bigger ships, I might as well take advantage of it to add more room for solar panels. The back is the obvious place to add onto, given that adding to the front would reduce streamline and therefore speed and... what's that? It looks like a house? No, it's oh, yeah, I made my 4th spaceship that's a house. I think it's funny that a mod about building spaceships is actually just SimCity. The best shape is obviously a house, and you can tell yourself, oh man, I'm engineering and flying to different planets, but you're not. You're building houses and decorating the interior. We've all been scammed. It's not space exploration, it's a real estate corporation. Anyway, if you haven't guessed, Jura is done baking, and I'm going to begin the ground assault with my new ship. This felt less like Factorio and more like a heist. We have objectives and we need to meet them. Vitaminage core fragments and extract, then get out. Time is of the essence, and remember the order of operations. Power, secure the borders, iron, oil, and we'll go from there. Capiche?
I might just disengage and hide.
All right, I'm coming in for an hour.
Oh, baby.
You gotta see what you've done.
I have advanced science.
He's going into the Facto land.
I also just landed on a new planet, so I'm setting up this because I have to get fucking Vitamelange core fragments to space.
Specifically?
Yeah, they're input for Bio 4.
Oh,
You joined right during an autosave.
yeah, it says waiting for server to save the map. Yeah, I think it's fucked. I am going to restart. Frame perfect. Found a bug in Factorio.
You have a new bug to share with the cat boys.
I do.
Only 2 minutes to load the server. Lol.
I made another spaceship and it started out looking like a Cheez-It, but now it looks like a hybrid between a Cheez-It and a brick house. Every fucking thing I make is a brick house.
I want Cheez-It really bad now, and this is your fault. But what am I doing?
I feel like there's some things I just don't even fundamentally understand right now. So if I do this deep zone discovery, so this is an infinite research that gets like one more expensive every time you do it, but it's a deep space zone and I don't know what's up with them.
It's an area without a sun. So we found one over here. This is where you get Naquitite.
I see, yeah, Naquitite.
So I can go around and look here for some, and then we can just trim it if I don't find any. Yeah, there's very little Naquitite here. I'm gonna trim that one then. I'm gonna see if we can get one with like a little bit more. Not quite.
Doing that processing, I want to, like, you want to use productivity modules, but it's going to be in space. So it's like, should you bring it down to a planet and then do all this shit? Or like...
I think grape shots are best bet because we can set up uranium there because it has a lot of water ice and a lot of uranium ore. So can we do all the uranium processing there?
Yeah, I mean, uranium's, all things considered, simple to set up. If you...
Or we could just do the deuterium tritium reactors, diffusion there. But then you need like a source of power.
Because it's so far away, you can't really beam in energy. Solar panels also are kind of shit in those zones,
Yeah,
I
they're
think.
1% solar efficiency.
Yeah, so it's pretty much like nuclear
Or make a big battery ship.
Yeah, it would take like 15 minutes to fly here, 15 to 20. I've been going with rockets with 4 boosters, but if I put 6 on them or more, because we can make bigger rockets now, or bigger spaceships, I should say, it could get there faster. Because power, you can shove like a shit ton of power onto a ship for the most part. And then with really good solar panels, even if you run out of power, you can still go like 70 speed with just the solar panels if you set the ship up to have enough solar panels.
Yeah, I can't even find Aquatite.
I mean, we have so much astronomics research, and it only takes astronomics to do these scans. We could scan this like 50 times and it would be fine.
I'm gonna do that then. Oh, Hailstorm has 370% Naquitite.
How far?
127.6
Oh my god.
delta. Very far away.
Yeah, 120,000.
126,000. Yeah.
Oh, that would take like that'd be like an hour and 20 minutes ish.
Well,
Like core mine Naquitite there.
no core mining.
That would be too much to ask for.
Well, there is a worker robot speed 10.
Yeah, we can queue it. I would do a few more
It only
deep
takes
space.
7K.
Oh god, actually, yeah, that would take forever.
We could get advanced roboports.
An advanced pickaxe. Think of the value.
Or we could just get the advanced research servers.
I would bet that they're required for Naquium, given how like the rest of the stuff goes with upgrading.
Let's you make more efficient cables, space elevator cables.
That's
Because it's 4 nanomaterial, 4 aeroframe poles, and 1 superconductive cable for 20 space elevator cables.
if that saves iridium. That's although I have. If you you take a look at our boy the Jornswaggler, it's taken on a new life of being of just transporting iridium.
So it takes 1 nanomaterial takes 128 iridium plate.
It's like 13 bars. Well, and with productivity though, that's the thing, is when you make all this stuff with productivity, it probably gets even crazier. Also, the Hornswaggler gets a debuff because it is considered a long ship, so it takes up like more space than it actually takes up. It takes up 12% more. It's so funny. Fucking SpaceX dev hating on my hot dogs.
Why don't they make this math easy? Okay, it actually takes more iridium to make the cable with nanomaterial.
I bet that the productivity steps, because there's more processing steps to go from heavy girders to the other ones, that
'cause
it's like hard to calculate.
It takes 60% more without productivity.
Yeah, but the productivity becomes multiplicative, which gets tough.
I am back.
Yo,
My brain hurts. I'm staring into the abyss.
bro, imagine living in it.
I just realized I've been muted for the last hour.
Classic.
I came back and I said, I'm making sourdough muffins, and I got no response.
Downvote.
Yeah, fuck that. I need you to know something. Fuck your muffins. Fuck your muffins.
If you're gonna make this spaghetti, I'm not gonna let you use Bob's inserters anymore, because this is like, I actually can't tell what's happening here.
I mean,
I just see like 5 inserters clipped into each other, and I can't tell where they go. Ugh. I'm trying to figure out how this science gets made, and
I can tell you the general pattern.
well, I'm gonna get myself another Oreo, because I deserve it.
There's some joke in here about like dying prematurely as a result of like heart failure, and that's what you deserve. Sorry, continue.
I mean, of all the crap that I eat, I'm sure Oreos are like the least bad.
Oreos are like ridiculously high in calories.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but if I eat like one, I'm sure the Oreo is less calories than the bowl of tater tots I just ate.
You ever get the Arthur theme song stuck in your head?
Nope.
Oh, wait. When you're walking down the street, everybody that you meet has an original point of view.
Yes.
And I say, hey,
Hey!
what a wonderful kind of day.
That sounds right.
I think so.
When we can learn to laugh and play Balatro. And I say, hey, what a wonderful kind of day. Learn to work and play.
Dude, that's so good.
And I say, hey, hey.
That does not work.
It can't.
Okay,
What's going on?
It does not like that.
it was like clipping, but if clipping, like the sound went down, it was like a bass clip.
Yeah.
It's like hard to describe, but it was like brrr.
All right, no more funny voices.
Yeah, we can't do that. We don't do that here. All right, good work, team. We've secured the Vita. Time to come home. The payload's going to be parked just north of the bioscience, so it can easily unload and travel south. All we need now is a train stop dropping off Ion Stream for fuel, and that's a successful heist. Box says 396 hours. Oh,
396?
yeah.
Jeez.
It's almost time to celebrate the 400-hour mark. I was overconfident coming into this. I thought I knew so much about the game I'd be done in 300 hours. As painful as it is thinking that the end was sooner than it was, this may have been the carrot hanging off a stick that's gotten me this far. Well, the end can't be too far away, right? Right? We just finished space sciences. It's gotta be just around the corner. After discovering an asteroid field called Dead Space that was only 27,000 distance units away, I started prospecting for Naquitite, the final resource in the mod. Asteroid fields can contain Naquitite, water ice, iron, stone, copper, rare metals, uranium, and methane ice, and seem to be strictly limited to that list. Of the dozen or so other asteroid fields I looked at, none of them contained crude oil, mineral water, or any of the other advanced resources like beryllium or vulcanite. Asteroid fields are very large, and the mod that automatically marks resource deposits is a godsend. The trifecta I'm looking for here is water ice for steam generating, methane ice for Naquitite production, and of course, Naquitite. Given the spread out nature of asteroid fields, I'm starting to see the value in the unique ability of space rail and pylons. Both can be built in space without scaffolding. This will be key in connecting these scattered resource deposits. Always nice to watch the fireworks between jobs. Baroom needed some maintenance in the form of sunbeam power and a new iron mine, and spaceships have made traveling to planets easier than ever. No more cargo rocket hopping, so this one was fairly painless. It's been a bit overdue, but the list of advanced materials that I can produce has ballooned in size. Any that can be made on Navis are trained down. Oh, for the love, can we try that take again? Any that can be made on Navis are trained down to be made with productivity modules, but some can only be made in space, so I carved out an area for the specialized labor independent of bot deliveries. Mostly I want to make high temperature heat exchangers and steam turbines to better handle the 5,000 degrees steam I can now use, as well as some other high tiered items like lattice pressure valves and self-sealing gel. These generally have expensive inputs like quantum computers and dynamic emitters that can be jigged together in the same space. These are mostly items that I want to make a select number of, but some I'll want to export, and a parallel train stop just east will be used to pick up the expensive commodities. The heist wasn't enough. It's come to my attention that vitamelage costs have gone through the roof. It's time to finish the job on Jura and actually process the vitamelage. If the last trip was a heist, this one is a speedrun. A jetpack and bidirectional trains allow me to quickly connect disparate parts of this base, while advanced crafting stations and blueprints make quick work of the otherwise arduous crafting process. Vulcanite and Cryonite are both needed here, but this is a speedrun, so we just call both in via rocket. For a long time, I had considered this to be a very expensive maneuver, an entire rocket full of Vulcanite blocks being sent out everywhere. That's gotta be way too expensive. Turns out, even the relatively low production on Infamani can provide Vulcanite to 4 other landing pads. This is because each landing pad uses Vulcanite very slowly, and 500 inventory slots last a very long time. The same is true for Cryonite, except it's even better because we make Cryonite much faster and on a planet that can take advantage of beryllium cargo sections, which are effectively twice as efficient to send. This also means I could have gone to Jura first instead of Horrera Tomb. And the ramifications are devastating. Not only is Horrera Tomb 3 times farther away than the asteroid field I want to go to, which is insane, it's by far the biggest planet with no choke points, making defense a nightmare. Coupled with the insane rocket fuel costs for each cargo rocket delivery and the indigenous Vulcanite and Cryonite that allow Horrera Tomb to function independently, become a much lower value proposition. Going to Jura first would have been faster, easier to defend, and trivial to travel to and scale up when needed. I might as well be playing a challenge run at this point. The first planet I go to has no water and is useless. Navis doesn't use LTN. Our vitamelage costs 6 times more to defend and transport. What would we call this speedrun category? Sauce percent? Yeah, this is a sauce percent speedrun. Either way, I'll be using this janky train loop to unload it because I'm lazy, and now we have a second source of vitamelage extract, pulling us one step closer to true independence from Horrera Tomb. Morrigan continued to fuss up and needed a new stone mine. What are you doing? You can't just put the time up in the middle of my... Oh, we've hit the limit on saying stone mine for the series? Alright, moving on, everybody. Majestic Vulcanite B-roll footage. Oh, you don't say that out loud, sorry. Hello, Sauceman has officially retired. I am Barbecue Guy from Sauce Corp, here to talk about everything not related to making another stone mine. First on the docket today are advanced research servers. These are faster but larger versions of the Disco Labs we've been using. They're very expensive, and I don't need 8 of them, so say goodbye to any symmetry we may have once had. Unfortunately, these are also a visual downgrade and don't spin with disco lights when researching, a sad but necessary sacrifice this factory is willing to take. But it's not just speed that makes these bad boys worth it. They also come standard with 2 extra module slots, saving 30% or more on car and 30% or more on productivity. With savings like these, I'm jumping out of my seat to come down and buy a new washer, dryer. I'm jumping out of my seat to replace these old research labs. We are farmers. Bump it up. Where did you find a guy named Barbecue Guy? just started reading ads? We're not sponsored by anybody. What the hell? Yeah, sure, I'll come back and... Hello, here to replace Barbecue Guy. This is Sauce Man. You probably know me from 2 minutes ago in this video. The usage of the new research servers and speed modules in literally everything in space, coupled with late Iridium deliveries, caused the space elevator to go down and has led to a blackout on Navis. And there is one saving grace that pulled me through in my time of need. 300 hours ago, I placed 24,000 solar panels on Navis. I actually can't believe that number. It seems way too high, but I did place a ton of them, and during the day, things are actually almost okay. During the night, I gotta go play cowboy a bit, but Navis's walls are far away from the main factory, making it easy to shore up. This did spur me to make Navis's power generation more robust, and I got a great excuse to use the new high temperature heat exchangers and advanced turbines. Each turbine generates 100 megawatts, so this is a very powerful addition. When the space elevator goes back up, this will hardly be necessary, but I'll be stockpiling the ultra hot steam as a backup in case this happens again. When everything was back up and running, I did some more astronomy and found a nice place to land near a 300,000 Naquitite, fairly close to a 6 million water ice deposit and some methane ice deposits as well. I'm hoping I'll be able to see this tag when it's time to actually travel here, but I wouldn't place any bets. We've been running with these for a while at this point, but the neural supercomputers now do the card refurbishing with a 90% success rate up from 80%. Again, don't see this as a 10% increase in cards saved, but a 50% increase in cards saved. It came at the hefty price of 300 AI cores, but the savings in stone, advanced circuits, and copper is going to be off the charts. While Barbecue Guy was in charge, I took some time to develop the most advanced ship yet, a Dorito. Structural integrity research allows us to make truly massive ships, and this one will be the largest to date, boasting the most engines, cargo space, and cup holders of any spaceship yet. The original Dorito shape wasn't quite going to do it. As tempting as simply making a bigger Dorito is, triangular shapes don't play well with Factorio's rectangular buildings. A compromise between angular and rectangular is the goal. The new high-temperature steam turbine, boasting an output of 1 gigawatt, is the main thing that needs to be built around here. It inputs 5,000 degrees steam, which is very slow to make even with the 5 onboard boilers, and it outputs water but also 500 degrees steam, which then needs to go to standard condenser turbines, which also output water. It's nothing too complicated compared to any of the crafting we've done recently, but fitting it onto the limited spaceship space is a challenge. The high heat turbine outputs on the front and sides, posing several possible configurations for where the water and steam can be stored, and I ended up with this one. I like that I can tuck a boiler to melt ice into water just between the water tank and the steam boiler. The rest can be filled in with accumulators and solar panels. I need at least a few accumulators that can fit in the cracks, and the solar panels are a nice bonus and can come in handy if the steam power fails in any way. Every time I thought I was done, I realized I could add more. So I did. I gave it some cool solar panel wings, which needed little flares at the top to keep the streamline. I don't think you can make wings like this work in real life, but this isn't real life. This is just based on real life, which translates to just do whatever you feel like. A new tool will be necessary for this ship's missions: shield projectors. These completely block asteroids at the cost of power and slowly regenerate after impact. They won't replace laser turrets, but will be an incredible complement. Laser turrets excel at destroying small asteroids, while shields act as an impenetrable line of defense even against the largest asteroids, so long as they don't get overwhelmed. After some final tweaks, the Hammerhead was ready to go. Its mission, the long haul to the asteroid field called Dead Space. The journey will take at least 10 minutes, and the supplies in the warehouse are primarily infrastructure. Lots of space rail pylons, miners, warehouses, and turbines. This is where things get interesting. Taking a look at Naquitite and its crafting steps, it's complicated and requires either an advanced resource or derivatives of an advanced resource of every type. Not to mention anion and cation exchange beads and methane gas. These are applied across 6 stages of crafting, although crushed Naquitite uses 2 different recipes to output refined Naquitite and Naquitite powder. I'm getting ahead of myself and I'll go into more depth when I actually start crafting it, but the takeaway is it's complicated and it requires every advanced resource. There are 2 ways to go about this, and it's not clear which the mod creator is nudging me toward. I'll have to wait and see how well or poorly Naquitite stacks. I can bring resources to deep space and make it there. Assuming Naquitite stacks poorly, this would be the most efficient way to make it in terms of spaceship trips. The problem is, well, everything. First, balancing 7 resources to send to this destination sounds like a ton of work. It's probably much more than that because cation and anion exchange beads need plastic, which needs oil or coal, which is not found in asteroid fields. I have a big fear of bringing the correct amount of 10 resources only to learn that I forgot an 11th and I need to take the 20-minute round trip just to grab another one. The second problem is this crafting happens in space, which is always worse than on land if you can craft it on land. The reason is space belts and pipe underground length are awful, and most importantly, productivity modules are banned in space. Which brings us to option 2. Ship the mined Naquitite back to Navis to be processed on Navis. Navis already imports every single advanced resource, has everything needed to make cation and anion exchange beads, and I can use the productivity modules for everything. Productivity modules are particularly nice here because each crafting step multiplies their effectiveness, and there are many crafting steps. This will go a long way toward preserving the disparate Naquitite mines as well as increasing the crafting speed. In one of the first episodes, I talked about the complex relationship between productivity and speed and how a productivity bonus that also reduces crafting speed can actually increase the net crafting speed above that of a similar speed module even. With the potential of productivity module 7s granting 16% productivity each, this becomes more and more possible. Wait, am I already? That was so much faster than I thought it would be. And before I knew it, I was there. This is the farthest I've ever been from home, but it's also the closest asteroid field by quite a bit. While it only has a modest amount of Naquitite in comparison to some of the other asteroid fields, it's still more than enough, and there are other Naquitite mines in the periphery I can tap into in the future. You can stare at maps all you want, but there is nothing like building in this expansive fractal to make you realize how small you are. You're swimming in an infinite of asteroid islands with no definable shapes, no landmarks to speak of. Going the right direction is only possible with a map. Getting lost is a true possibility, and with a limited amount of rocket fuel, it could mean floating in the wrong direction for the rest of time with nothing to reset your momentum. You're not scared for your life so much as you are scared by the lack of life, the lack of anything. If I disappeared in this cloud of asteroids, nobody would ever know. Nobody could ever know. The information would be deleted. Of course, if I did get lost, I could just, reload. But it was still immersive. This area felt both like a pedestal of infinite potential and a maze of silent death. This field is still close enough to beam in sunlight. The strength is only 27%, but it beats setting up uranium, which would need sulfuric acid to mine, requiring sulfur, which again needs oil or coal, which we can't find anywhere here and would need to be imported. Speaking of sulfuric acid, it turns out Naquitite also needs sulfuric acid to mine. It's not mentioned anywhere when you research it, on a miner, in the Informatron, anywhere. So, your first trip to the asteroid field, yeah, it's kind of meaningless because you probably didn't randomly bring some sulfur. I don't think hiding this information is done on purpose, but at this point it's a major issue. Several times now I've embarked on epic journeys only to find out I'm missing a key ingredient I didn't bring, and by all means my engineer should know, given all the research I'm doing into ultra cyber quantum physics, but isn't posted anywhere. and then I have to go back and grab it or take 20 minutes to assemble it on the spot, and it's totally unnecessary. Just tell me how things work. Forgetting a simple ingredient on an expensive trip is not exploration and discovery. It just comes off as lazy and frustrating. Anyway, again, I don't think it's on purpose, just taking note. If it is on purpose, then stop it. Don't do that. Bad. What we just witnessed was me realizing something needed to jumpstart the pump so the steam would work. I pulled a MacGyver and realized I could burn fuel in a burner generator, but again, no coal, no oil. What am I going to burn? Well, rocket fuel, of course. I checked. There were 0 other items I brought with a fuel value. Although I can't mine Naquitite, I can still set up some rails and mines for other resources before I resupply on sulfuric acid supplies. Uranium seems like a nice thing to mine. It would be nice to set up a backup nuclear or fusion reactor, and it also provides iron and stone when processed, which could be helpful. It will need some sulfuric acid to mine though, and I want to use all the sulfuric acid I bring for the mission critical Naquitite, so it's not exactly a slam dunk out here. I also set up a methane ice mine. We do get trickles of methane ice from processing vitamelage, but deep space is the only place you can mine it, and it's here in large quantities. It can be used to generate nutrient gel, but I really only want it for the last crafting step in the Naquitite ingots. I had thought I explored the area around my arrival well, only to find a 1.5 million Naquitite not too far away, and only notice it when I actually got close to this area. I imagine these mineral deposits are next to impossible to see without the mod that tags them. This is also a time where I sang the praises of double-headed trains. Connecting all these mines requires a ton of space rail, and I have nowhere near enough rail to afford the standard 2-lane setup. Thank was I was forced to learn and get comfortable with double-headed trains. The location I parked the ship at wasn't random, it was adjacent to a Naquitite mine. The plan is to fill the warehouse in the abdomen of the ship on one side and unload it on the other when it returns to Navis. Mined Naquitite needs a place to be dropped off, so I'll set a logistic train stop as close as I can to the middle for easy loading onto the Hammerhead. I'll also need to collect some interstellar void probe data. With interstellar void probes, this complicates the loading and unloading process a little bit, but if I can get everything that loads onto the ship counted in stacks, then I should be able to calculate when the cargo is full and take off regardless of if I'm full with Naquitite, interstellar void probe data, or a mix of both. All trains out here will be nuclear, which are much faster and easier to refuel than standard trains. There's nothing to burn out here, so bringing fuel is already a necessity, and uranium fuel cells last significantly longer than any burnable fuel. Plus they make green smoke, so the choice was obvious. The last thing we need is methane ice. The way I'm going to count stacks is simply to multiply materials by 200 divided by their stack size. Methane's stack size is 200, so it'll be multiplied by 1, while the interstellar void probe data's stack size is 50, so it will be multiplied by 4. We still don't know Naquitite's stack size yet, but once we do, we'll do the same thing, and the final step is then to compare that value to the total amount of stacks the ship can hold and output a green check if the ship is full. I also don't want to overload on any resources, so I'll be sending the amount of the 3 resources I have on Navis back here and preventing loading if there is enough on Navis. You may have noticed that I am placing a bunch of solar panels, which seems strange on a plane with 1% solar efficiency. They may not generate a lot of electricity, but they'll do a little bit. I just like solar panels. I'd probably place them if solar efficiency was 0%. With the rail laid and the mines dug, it was time to head home and restock. I needed a place to park this bad boy, and just north of the sciences is where I had planned to put the deep space sciences. Just east is an easily extended rail line, and science can naturally be added to the sushi splitters going south. The Hammerhead's journeys are double purpose. Navis wants Naquitite, methane ice, and data, while the asteroid belt wants iron ingots and sulfur to make sulfuric acid. While it unloads, it will also be loading from the other side. No time to waste in the shipping business. The new hot commodity is nanomaterials, made by combining several high-level materials together. They're used to make space cable more efficiently, but also make nano-engineering data, and combined with the interstellar void data, I actually have half of the Deep Space Science 1 cards completed, and I haven't even touched Naquitite. With some key things like advanced pickaxe I can't even say that with a straight face. Advanced pickaxe does nothing. We're going back to the void. To smuggle the maximum amount of the good stuff back, the Hammerhead is going to need some aftermarket modifications. Another onboard warehouse puts us over the container stress limit, but the same amount of cargo space divided into some chests will work. Dumping these into a central chest with a truly horrifying Bob's inserters setup might not be your cup of tea, but for me, this is pure practicality, desperation. True art isn't created without pain. Drumroll please, the stack size for Naquitite is 10. Yeah, as bad as it could be, I figured as much. This might change things. Maybe crafting Naquitite ingots in the void is better. Maybe I should set up everything on this asteroid. Yeah, no. The only cost of a round trip with the Hammerhead is ion stream, something I can't get rid of fast enough, and sidestepping the headache of setting up a factory out here is worth an infinite amount of spaceship trips. And shipping it is less than half the battle. The location I landed on Navis is just north of where every advanced resource gets dropped off. If it was a spaghetti fiesta before, it's about to become Mardi Gras. Alright, let's dive into the first step. We crush it with iridium plates and output crushed Naquitite, an 80% chance at refunding the iridium plate, iridium powder, and water? Apparently there's water in Naquitite. Well, nothing we haven't dealt with before. Just prioritize the refunded Naquitite, get a tank for the water, and of course do this with only the best productivity modules money can buy. The iridium powder is the only loose end, but it wouldn't be the first time I let my problems pile up in a warehouse. Before we get to step 2, I need to make sure rocket fuel starts piling up in the ship before I take off again. If landing in space only costs ion stream, it might make sense to land in space and not need 750,000 liquid rocket fuel to take off from this planet again. And that's where you'd be underestimating my malaise. Landing in space means I'd need a specialized train to take Naquitite down to Navis. And I'm willing to pay 750,000 rocket fuel per launch just to not make a train station. That's where we're at. Anyway, for step 2, we need to make a train station to unload the raw barrel. Where do we get that? Well, recall that raw barrel is in our asteroid belt, and our first spaceship currently drops barrel off at Hagen to be processed. Hagen doesn't really need more barrels, so that can be rerouted to space and trained down here. The reason that we need more raw barrel and not the ingots is step 2 needs barrel hydroxide to turn crushed Naquitite into refined Naquitite and Naquitite powder with anion exchange beads. Step 2 is also step 2 and 3 at the same time and the most complicated. There is a parallel crafting step requiring vulcanite and cation exchange beads to make the same thing but outputting different quantities and ratios. Each recipe spits out an ion bead of the type it's not using, so the idea is to place the 2 steps close to each other so they can pass their beads back and forth. It also makes sense to have them close to each other to balance the outputs. One makes more refined Naquitite while the other makes comparatively more Naquitite powder. My initial setup was pretty complicated, involving comparing levels of extra anion and cation exchange beads, powder, and refined Naquitite, but I think you really only have to check the level of powder and refined Naquitite and just use the recipe that makes the one you're lower on. The barrel recipe outputs barrel powder, while the holmanite recipe spits out holmanite powder, and those only need vulcanite to be smelted back into ingots, so doing that on the spot and feeding the refunded ingots back into the process was a natural addition. Step 4 is to turn the Naquitite into crystals, but not all the Naquitite. Crystals are used in recipes for science, but also in crafting ingots, which also need the refined and powderized Naquitite the crystals require to be processed. Crystals get made faster than ingots do, so the simple answer to balance is to stop making crystals when you have a specific amount of them. The crystals you have will be used to make ingots, which triggers more crystal making. There's a bunch of ratios and balancing and stuff I could do to make this more exact, but I can't even be asked to make another train stop. Step 5 requires a train stop to export our crystals and ingots. Thankfully, I already have one that ferries a random set of advanced materials into space, and 2 more materials are easy to add on. And that is Naquitite finished. We've already blown through our first load of Naquitite with every building filled with productivity module 5s or better, so the speed is totally fine for right now. I just need to set up the ship to land back in Navi's orbit to refuel and set conditions for takeoff, and this process is already automated. It was a bit of a challenge at first to figure out the balancing of outputs, but once it started to click, I was done before I knew it. It's an expensive process, don't get me wrong. The holmium cable and vitalic reagent are going to eat through my advanced resource stashes, but that's what they're there for. I don't need to win the game with a mountain of metal sitting in the bank. On the trip back to the Void, I realized that the steam making process doesn't need to happen in the ship, it can happen at the stops. This allows steam to build up while ships are in flight, saves room on ships, and just uses electricity from these stops, which generally have more than enough to bankroll the operation. Basically, there's no reason not to do it. It also means I can dump the condenser turbine water that steam from Navi's outputted on the ship to help naturally import water to the Void. We still have 8 million water left to mine at the power generation plant in the Void, so I really shouldn't be worried about it, but it is cool that the valueless water condenser turbines leave behind are actually kind of useful here. On the topic of water savings, the Void is currently using normal turbines instead of condenser turbines to generate power, which is really, really dumb. It takes a non-zero amount of power to melt ice into water before turning it into steam, so saving 99% of the water to reuse as steam would potentially generate more power and make my ice deposits last about 100 times longer. Upgrading to condenser turbines here is a no-brainer. The trip back gave me another philosophical opportunity. This Naquitite operation is steady but slow. Spaceship round trips are 20 minutes or more. Each trip only makes around 100 ingots and crystals, and I'm going to need much more than that. In the past, slow operations were passable because I had hundreds of hours to let them do their thing, but I'm at 430 hours. I might not have another 100 hours to go. Maybe building the crafting in the Void was the right decision. I could bring back hundreds of ingots each trip. Crap, I might not have time. Do I need to start setting this up in the Void? Ha, gotcha. I will never do that. This is Factorio. A spaceship is a factory. A factory can be blueprinted, and blueprints can be doubled and given to the next guy. Spaceship parts might be expensive, but Ion Stream is still free, and what's more space exploration than having a squadron of spaceships? And think about how easy this is. All the refueling and takeoff logic is handled, no new logistics stream, just copy and paste. It's even easier than downloading more RAM. And after finding the multiply Naquitite command was bound to Control V, I can get started on the last 2 Deep Space Science 1 cards. One needs ingots, the other needs crystals and magnetic canisters filled with 1,000 ion stream. Not only is 1,000 ion stream obnoxiously expensive, the recipe doesn't even refund the magnetic canister, which is the same as eating dinner and then eating your plate. The canisters are a slow pain in the ass to craft, and I am once again asking why. I know the ion stream is cheap, but 1,000 to make 2 Deep Space Sciences? I need to make a new canister every time? Just like, why? This step is 10 times more annoying than the other 3 steps. Just please help. But somehow I'm able to do it. Deep Space Science 1 completed and Naquium cubes on the way. More importantly, only 5 sciences are left to set up in the entire game. It only gets harder from here. I'm sure I'll be laughing at how cheap 1,000 ion stream is in a few days, but for now, I gotta actually get there. Naquitite marks the last resource I'll ever need to process, and a focus on science might yield tangible progress toward the end. Let's hope we can get there in the next one.